Conservative MPs want to take China to the international courts, and we talk about the dodgy relationship between China and the World Health Organization. So today has been a massive day in terms of the news cycle because the think tank Henry Jackson Society have published a report against the Chinese government when it comes to this health crisis, and the Tory MPs, a number of them, have now come together to tell the government, the British government, that we should take China to the international court because of the health treaty responsibilities that China and every other country have, and they haven't followed. So we're going to talk about this, and we actually speak to one of the representatives of the Henry Jackson Society, Samuel Armstrong, in this video as well. So let's start, because in today's Mail on Sunday, the headline said, China owes us £351 billion in damages. This is the 15 of the top Tories in Parliament have now urged the government and Boris Johnson to reset the UK relations with Beijing and the Chinese Communist Party. This comes as 15 senior Tories, led by the former Deputy Prime Minister Damien Green, have written to Boris Johnson to demand a rethink and a reset in relations with China. The kind of comprehensive investigation that's going on into the impact on an economic level when it comes to this issue have kind of concluded that the G7 group of the world's largest economies have been hit by a £3.2 trillion pound bill that could have been avoided if the Chinese Communist Party had been open and honest about the outbreak late in 2019. Well, yes, it's ridiculous. We've mentioned this so many times that China and the Chinese government didn't act properly, whether because they were incompetent, lazy, or just didn't care and did it on purpose. And so this is why this investigation matters, and they need to respond and actually answer a tough question. The report to be published tomorrow by the Henry Jackson Society, a British foreign policy think tank, says that there is evidence that China directly breached international healthcare treaty responsibilities and outlines 10 legal avenues major nations could take to pursue damages from them. Now, with us today, we have Sam Armstrong, one of the representatives of Henry Jackson Society, to talk about this issue. Right, so welcome to the show, Sam. Obviously, you're part of the Henry Jackson Society. You guys published this report today. So tell me more about the whole situation.
So look, we started with a simple question, which is, assume for a minute that China is responsible, and we'll come back to that, whether it is or isn't. But if it's responsible for this kind of coronavirus outbreak that's destroyed the world's economy, that's meant all of us have to stay within our homes, that's completely turned our lives upside down, what can the West do about it? So what we went and did is we found 10 legal options, legal avenues that range from international courts to domestic courts to bring someone to justice in just the same way as you would with a chemical company that polluted a lake. If you pollute a lake, you expect to get sued for the damages. So we found these 10 options, and then we said, right, well, how much has the West spent so far? And we went away, and a very clever colleague of mine looked at all of the announcements, and they found that 351 billion pounds was how much the UK had spent in announced spending already. That's before you deal with the economic damage, just before you deal with compensating people who've lost relatives or got very ill. But across the G7 as a whole, so you're a good example of your 7 major industrial economies, you're looking at 3.2 trillion pounds. That's about $4 billion in damages. Wow. And then what we do, lastly, is we say, well, look, are there any laws that China broke in dealing with coronavirus? And we identified these rules or regulations called the International Health Regulations. China agreed to them in 2005, along with 195 other countries. And what they say is, if you've got a pandemic incident, you've got to fess up about it. Not only you've got to fess up about it, you've got to provide about 8 or 9 different categories of data so that the world can work out, does it want to stop people from Wuhan coming into the country? Now, in this case, it's pretty clear that for a period of about a month and a half, China was grotesquely lying about not only the number of infections, but the type of infections, the damage that they could cause, and that this pattern of mendacity or lying or dishonesty or hiding the truth directly led to the spread of the disease out from Wuhan and into the world, so that it's affecting us at the moment.
Will it be the UK essentially suing them, or is it going to be a number of countries like the US, the UK, and the United Nations? How does this work?
So 3 options in terms of who can bring a claim. So the first option would be a group of nations. So we took the G7, but it could just as easily be a group of countries like the Five Eyes, countries that believe in democracy could bring a claim. That would probably be the best method, because then you're all standing together in solidarity, and China throws its weight around when you ever seek to call it out. So it's best to do it as a team. Second option, a country could do it by itself. And by the way, if no one should stand with the UK should stand alone, because we believe in these rules. We should stand up for them. And then the last option would be that private citizens or companies could bring their own claims at certain routes of international law under a bilateral investment treaty the UK has with China, or even bringing it in the English courts. And then again, you could bring those claims either against the Chinese state itself or against companies in China,
the labs, for example,
or basically they're long arm reaches of the Chinese state.
That's interesting. I mean, we're going to obviously be following this, this report and the reaction to it today. Obviously, in the news we've seen, it's been dominating the whole news cycle. So we'll definitely, what we're going to have actually, in fact, we're going to invite you to come on the show in the next few days to actually discuss the whole thing in detail. So thanks again for coming on the show, and hopefully we'll speak to you soon.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mo.
Now, on top of that, we have some Conservative MPs who are now openly and publicly, in a very angry manner, attacking China because previously our governments decided to trust China. That was a bad idea. So this is one of them writing in the Mail on Sunday. Yes, Tom Tugendhat says, Beijing uses a toxic brew of lies and fear to maintain power. Britain risks paying a very high price if we stay in hock to China. Tom says that the Chinese government obviously lie, cover up, and kind of essentially use fear to maintain power over its people, and this is why it has hidden the truth from the moment the virus first hit. Thankfully, some brave Chinese doctors, such as Li Wenliang in Wuhan, warned about the dangers. However, he was forced to sign a letter, and this is this typical Chinese mentality in terms of their government, where they made some of these doctors sign letters. They made some of them, well, they actually imprisoned some of them, and they decided to some of them disappeared for some reason, and it's a very Soviet kind of style of tyranny in order to cover up their own mess. And now this doctor ended up actually dying of the virus, becoming the latest in a long line of martyrs to the Chinese Communist Party power. While the Chinese government was telling the WHO that the virus could only be transmitted from animals to humans, the country's scientists knew the truth, that humans were infecting each other, and that an epidemic was not only possible but likely. Now that goes to a different problem. The World Health Organization, or as I would call them, the Chinese Health Organization, because that's what they are. The relationship between China and WHO is quite toxic, it's quite dodgy. The head of the WHO has a very weird past, and they're very close to the Chinese government. This is another piece by Ian Birrell that talks about China's toxic lackey. The head of the WHO stands accused of putting lies at risk by parroting China's lies and failing to expose its cover-ups. Now, this guy is a Mugabe apologist, and this week he also boasted of his friendship with Lady Gaga. I mean, are you kidding me? So this guy who prevented WHO from declaring a public health emergency just days earlier has offered nothing. Instead, he's praised the Chinese leadership and for their transparency. Later, he declared that the country was setting a new standard for outbreak response. Really? And then he tweeted this: "A very good call with Lady Gaga. I thanked her for her continuing efforts to show compassion and kindness to the world. She is ready to support WHO in any way." I mean, what? Kindness. Why can't you do your own job? Health. Kindness is not your job. Now, there are also other reports today showing that talking about the virus actually being leaked from the research lab in Wuhan, not just from the wet markets and with all the wild animals. Now, this is a new take because until now, the UK government and Boris Johnson, they've been waiting patiently to find out more about what China been up to. That's why they haven't actually commented until now. Now they say that, oh, we are definitely going after China because whatever happened in that lab is quite dodgy. Senior government sources say that while the balance of scientific advice is still that the deadly virus was first transmitted to humans from a live animal market in Wuhan, a leak from a laboratory in the Chinese city is no longer being discounted. Now, we had one member of the Boris Johnson's Cobra committee saying that we know that obviously this could have been coming from animals, but they're not ruling out that the virus was first spread to humans after a leak from a lab in Wuhan. Yeah, the whole situation is a bit chaotic and it's a bit of a mess. China did lie and people did die. And we are not going to give up. There are a lot of other people on YouTube and other blogs and podcasts who are now pursuing this until the mainstream media start talking about it properly. Because the mainstream media are being extremely complacent, boring, and idiotic these days. There's nothing to find out when you watch it. You could get all your news on Twitter and the notifications that you get from the Sky News app. You don't need to watch the TV anymore, apart from press conferences. So this is what we're going to be doing on this channel. Tonight, on our live stream, Quarant stream, we have a special guest. We have Peter Barnes, a political analyst, who's going to be talking about the possible Brexit extension because of this situation, and also everything else that's related to this issue. So make sure to tune in at 7 p.m. Every night, 7 p.m. we have our live stream, and as you know, every day at 5:45 p.m. we have our daily videos. So if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and click on that bell next to it so you get notified, because we do come to you every day. And also I want to say massive thank you to our members of our YouTube club. All this is because of you guys, especially nowadays with YouTube actually withdrawing the ad support with all the advertisers going away. This channel actually relies on you. If you want us to survive and actually continue our work, to feel free to support us with 16p a day. You could actually support this channel and you get a lot of benefits in return. So make sure to check out the link in the description, or you could find the join button next to subscribe, or just go on your browser and type in youtube.com/myitc/join. Check out the details if you want to support. You're more than welcome. I'm myitc. I'll see you at 7 p.m. with the live stream, and tomorrow with our daily video.